Vinoo, he is a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Vinoo, great to have you on tonight. I got a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about, but I do want to get your take on the charges today against the new charges against 3 officers and the up charge against Derek Chauvin.
Well, I think it was bound to happen. There's nationwide protests going on right now, and people are, angry. And so when you've locked people up for 3 months, don't give them proper outlets, there was something waiting to happen. There was dynamite waiting to explode. And then an incident happens. But you have to look at this incident, George Floyd's death, and compare it to other incidents where unarmed black men in the past have been killed. Let's put things in perspective again with the killing of Eric Garner, the other famous I Can't Breathe case out of New York. That officer, Daniel Pantaleo, was never charged. He stayed on the job for 5 years. He was only fired last year, getting paid. So when people talk about justice for George Floyd, what are they saying? All 4 of these guys were fired right away. Now all 4 of them are under criminal indictment. You have one who's been charged with murder. So what does it mean? Does that mean that there should be a public execution? Does that mean that these people shouldn't get fair trials? No, they all deserve fair trials. You know why? Because they're Americans. They deserve that. Right. So, these protests really are not related to this, but, in relation to locking people up for 3 months.
Yeah, I want to. You brought up the Eric Garner case, and I want to play some sound, if I can, from Eric Garner's mother concerning the George Floyd case. Watch this.
This hurts me so bad because it mimics my case, and I'm back on these grounds of Minnesota, and it just feels like I'm coming to my son's funeral again. This young man was crying for his mother at the end. That was like my son echoing from the grave, saying, "Mama, you got to do something. They're still killing us."
Yeah, I mean, that case went on for 5 years. We were still paying Officer Pantaleo, right, for a long time before that thing was ever resolved.
Correct.
So people are also frustrated by that. This is kind of a compendium, Vinoo, of a lot of cases over the past several years.
Well, look, again, Pantaleo, I believe, should have been charged. I mean, you watch that. He took the man down, he choked him, and he was saying, "I can't breathe." None of the other officers around him were even up for consideration. Somebody should have pulled Pantaleo off, right? And what that led to, though, was peaceful protests. You had multiple people demonstrating. You have LeBron James wearing a T-shirt saying, "I can't breathe." Here, what is this? What does looting, rioting, or anything have to do with justice for George Floyd? You have a woman, Shauna Shader in New York, a 27-year-old white woman who's from upstate New York, who tried to kill 4 NYPD officers by throwing a Molotov cocktail into a car. You have 2 lawyers here in New York City who threw a Molotov cocktail at an NYPD cruiser and nobody was inside in that cruiser. But what does this all have to do with justice for George Floyd? Derek Chauvin's been in custody since almost day 1. And I'm not sure what more there needs to be. When you showed protesters saying, this isn't enough. Well, what isn't enough? Do you want to string Chauvin out and publicly shoot him? I'm really concerned here.
Well, and that's, it's a good point, because a lot of people say that they don't really know if these protesters really have the patience to go through this. And, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General in Minnesota, made it very clear today, it's a long process. Legal, the wheels of justice move slowly. This is a long process. The question is, Vinoo, do these people have the patience to wait for the process to play itself out?
Well, look, this is going to depend a lot on whether people can get back to normal, right? Where's Dr. Fauci right now? Why isn't he on TV every day telling people to stay inside and not spread coronavirus? Is there some immunity that protesters get, from the coronavirus? I'm a little serious. I have not heard or seen Dr. Fauci at all. What's going on? I mean, you've got to get people back to work. You've got to get society functioning. We're a society that's, depends on each other, people hugging, being able to go out to bars, restaurants, and be normal. If people had been working and not shut down for 3 months, this doesn't happen. The extent of this doesn't happen.
Well, I can tell you this much, you know, a lot of these people, if there's not a huge spike in COVID-19, a lot of governors and mayors and local politicians are going to have a very tough time convincing people to stay inside because they've got very little backing to draw back on. Vinoo, finally, I just want to get your thoughts on going forward. Do you think that we see more violence, or do you think that people believe their message is getting out through peace, as we've seen for the past couple of days?
Well, look, I think the one very positive thing here is the reaction that I've seen from law enforcement. Unlike Pantaleo's case, where it seemed the rank and file of the NYPD and officers around the country supported Pantaleo, here it seems like the majority of officers, you know, around the country, people that I know in the police department, are condemning this action. But, you know, again, you got to look at this case and say to yourself, okay, none of us know what kind of pressure was put on the neck of George Floyd. Was he choking him or was he restraining him? The autopsy has now revealed there was fentanyl in his system and that he had coronavirus. So all these are factors that may lead or could lead to an acquittal in terms of murder. And even I thought the initial charge of third-degree murder was you know, overcharging it down. But now they're going to charge second-degree murder.
But one of the autopsy reports also said asphyxiation, and that's one of the keys that Keith Ellison really put this whole case in. The independent autopsy showed that. Yeah. The question is it admissible? And if it is admissible, that's very compelling for a jury. I'll give you 5 seconds.
No, I'm just saying, no, you got to introduce the state is the one bringing the case. So the state's got to use its own autopsy. So at this point, that would be very interesting to see the state use an outside autopsy.
Yeah. Vinoo Varghese, great information as always. Thank you, sir.